Take 3 times a day.
Let's have a look at that.
Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Same thing, pen.
The pen again.
Very small needle for people who are squeamish.
Okay, that's all right, isn't it, that
You
needle?
see, I've got the shapes.
That's all right. It might be nervous while doing live telly. It's a bit spooky.
It's part of the
When did you find
condition.
out you had diabetes?
March 97. I started displaying a lot of the symptoms. I was going to the toilet very regularly and passing a lot of urine.
And were you drinking a lot of water?
Very, very thirsty. And it's one of those things, it doesn't matter how much you drink, you're still feeling very, very thirsty. So somebody at college actually said to me, you know, that's the symptoms for diabetes.
Look, I'm looking through it. What else have you got in here? Oh, you got your lipstick.
Yeah.
There's your lipstick. And you got more chocolate. I won't go through the... Oh, look, you've got your diary. No, I won't go through that. Thank you very much for explaining it,
That's
actually.
no problem.
Has it sort of made you fed up? Does it annoy you?
To start off with, I was fine. I thought I was going to cope with it okay. And then I did go through a couple of months where I found it quite hard to deal with because it is a big step in your life. It does cause problems. But now I think I'm sort of coming to terms with it, and it's just one of those things.
I'm about to put this back on where it goes. It goes in there, does it?
Yeah.
Goes in the side, and I'll zip that up. Rachel, thank you very much. You're a good
problem.
advert for people who are frightened of having diabetes, because look at you.
Quite healthy.
And you can still eat Mars bars as well. Do you want to go back to your stepdad?
Okay.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Rachel. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Now it's time to go back to Nick.
Isn't it amazing what you find in a woman's handbag?
Yes.
We're back with Randall Mackay here, who's come to talk to us about antibiotics, basically, because it's the thing that's most often asked for by GPs, isn't it? So we want to clear up a few of the old wives' tales, I suppose, about a new drug. Alcohol, can you or can you not take alcohol or have the odd drink with antibiotics?
By and large, you can. There's one antibiotic called metronidazole, used quite widely, that is a no-no. So even small amounts of alcohol can leave you feeling quite sick. But moderate amounts of alcohol with most antibiotics is fine.
OK. What about the pill? Because somebody else told me once that it can interfere with the pill. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a different matter. A lot of antibiotics can interfere with the pill. A particular bad one is one called rifampicin. Not all that widely used, but a lot of others have a risk. And the person will be well advised to use a barrier method of contraception for while the period that they're on the antibiotic, and also for at least 7 days after. The precise instructions vary from situation to situation, so they need to ask their doctor or pharmacist what they need to do. OK. Always says another thing, always complete the course. Why? If you feel well enough halfway through, surely that's good enough, isn't it? Well, bacteria have an extraordinary ability to become resistant to antibiotics, and it's a continual race for us to keep ahead of them. By completing the prescribed course, we make sure that all the bacteria there are dead and don't have the chance to develop resistance. Yeah, the other thing that you hear often is that there's a lot of talk around these days about doctors over-prescribing and that the bugs will get used to the antibiotics and they'll be no good. Is there anything in that? Well, I think we've been a victim of our own success to some extent in that the general public think we can cure anything with an antibiotic. Well, viruses aren't affected by antibiotics. So if the doctor says it's a virus infection, then don't expect an antibiotic. Right, so it's basically just holding it down and using it specifically for the things you need. Using it where you need it, yes. How many pills do you actually give out here in the course of a day? We dispense something like 700 to 800 prescriptions a day. So that's thousands of pills? Yeah. That's an awful lot of pills to shovel into bottles. Yes, but we have a bit of help. We got this machine for some of our most commonly used tablets. We just give a demonstration. This is metronidazole that we mentioned before that you shouldn't take with alcohol. Right. We just press in the number of tablets that we want, and press the button and it comes shooting out for us. And there you go, ready for dispensing. So it takes all the pain out of it. You make it sound like a war, a constant war between the researchers and the bugs. Is that how it is, really? Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. The bacteria divide so rapidly that they can change just in the course of a few weeks. Marvellous. It's extraordinary everything that goes on here. Thank you to you and all your team who've let us in here to have a look round today. You're welcome. It's a war, Gabby. It's a war against bugs.
Thank you very much, Nick, again. Now, we've just, we met Rachel, who has diabetes, and now we're going to meet Sheila. I'm back with Brian again. Hello, Brian. Hi. You're scooting all over the place this morning. You have the opposite, is that right? Is that me putting it like that? You have the opposite to diabetes?
Yes, diabetic needs insulin, and I had too much insulin, so I had a little growth in the pancreas that is called an insulinoma, and produces too much insulin, so has to be taken out so that my levels go back to normal.
So you had that removed and you now were on drugs to... No?
I don't have any drug control now.
Wonderful. That's good news. Brian, we've just spoken outside to Rachel in the corridor about all the stuff she carries in her handbag, and now we found out as well from Sheila it's the opposite. I have got to be honest, I'm very confused by diabetes, this opposite thing, and the insulin, what your insulin does. Could you just give us a sort of A to Z on insulin?
Well, insulin deficiency is the cause of diabetes, and insulin is produced by these cells in the pancreas, and it's under the control of the blood sugar. So when the blood sugar goes up, you produce insulin. When the blood sugar falls, your insulin production goes down and allows the liver to replenish the sugar in your blood, so you have a normal blood sugar. What's happened in Our Lady here is that the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas are working overtime, and they're not taking any notice of what the blood sugar is like, so there's no feedback, what we call feedback. It's rather like a thermostat, except that the thermostat's not working, and in her case, she continues to produce the insulin, even though the blood sugar's falling. So that produces what we call a hypoglycemic reaction.
So is that, did you used to get shaky if you were hungry?
Shaky, confused, very headachy, sweating, same sort of symptoms that a diabetic would get.
How dangerous is that sort of reaction, hypoglycemia? Is it dangerous?
Well, it can be quite dangerous, yes. I mean, it doesn't usually cause permanent harm, but it can make people faint, and obviously if they're doing things like swimming or driving, then it's, you know, can be quite hazardous.
Is it not a case of always taking food with you and sweets with you and all of that?
Yes, but the trouble with Sheila is that she didn't know that initially this was due to low blood sugar, so she had no way of knowing that. She only found out, I suspect, by trial and error, that taking sweet things would relieve the symptoms.
Really, yes, would make you feel better and perk you back up again. So as soon as you'd eaten, you felt quite good again.
Brian, thank you very much for clearing up something that I was very confused by. I now understand it. The thermostat thing was the bit. Thank you very much, both of you. Now it's time to go back to David Sutton, I think.
Now, the surgeon's busy in the theatre, but while that's going on, we're busy out here as well, and the nursing staff are preparing the drugs to keep Lisa pain-free after the operation. And what they're going to be doing is filling a syringe like this with morphine, which is a powerful painkiller. And then we're going to be putting this syringe into the pump here. And this is called PCA, patient-controlled analgesia. And the whole point of that is the control. So we're giving Lisa control over her own pain relief. We can set this pump to deliver the pain drugs straight into her bloodstream. And she'll do that by pressing a little button here. Every time she does that, she'll get one shot of painkiller. And we set this pump so that she can't overdose. There's no possibility of her harming herself. But she doesn't have to call a nurse every time Lisa wants to give herself some pain relief. She's got control.
That's all been very straightforward. We've taken away the diseased piece of small bowel. It's taken about 45 minutes to undertake that. We've joined the bowel together again, and we're just closing up the wound now. I think she'll feel very much better after this.
Well, now the surgery is finished, Raj is winding down the anaesthetic. So he's turned off the anaesthetic gases. We've turned the oxygen up, and Lisa will be getting lighter and coming out of the anaesthetic and should be awake within a few minutes. And she'll be comfortable, aware, awake, and we'll take her around to recovery where we'll make sure that all is well and she's nice and happy before she goes back to the ward.
That's it, Lisa. Nice deep breaths. Operation's all over. Open your eyes.
When you're anaesthetised, hearing is the last thing to go, and it's the first thing to come back. So we always start talking to a patient before they show signs of being awake, because they can probably hear you. And that's why if you're with a relative in a coma, the staff always ask you to talk to them, because they may hear but not show any signs that they can actually understand. The main priority of the nurses is to make sure Lisa's comfortable, and we're setting up the pain-killing pump that we saw earlier on, and that'll be set up and started off to make sure that she's completely comfortable.
Now, Lisa, it's Dr. Sutton. How are you feeling? Are you comfortable? Okay. I'm going to leave you in peace now. You're on your bed. Probably be another 20 minutes, then we'll get you back up to the ward, okay? Any sickness at all? Okay. What we're doing now is just really keeping an eye on Lisa for another half an hour until we're happy that she's happy. And once she's comfortable and stable, we'll send her back up to the ward. So we're happy that the blood pressure is nice and stable, her oxygen levels are high, and everything is ready for Lisa to go back to the ward. So Lisa's going, and I've got to go back to theatre.
So that's it for today. Watch this. Kathleen, let's do it one more time. Fantastic. Now, Thank you very much. I'm going to be away again next week, I'm afraid, this time to record the Christmas special edition of Whatever You Want. And I'm going to be leaving you in the capable hands of Vanessa Feltz. So I will see you in just over a week. I hate going away because I love this place. I really do, and I love this job. Anyway, have a great weekend, and I'll see you in a week. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
A real winter warmer of a fish dish in today's Good Living. Crusty, zesty herb haddock coming up with Jane Asher in 5 minutes here on BBC One. I bet Jane doesn't talk to the fish. Ainsley does. In fact, he strikes up a conversation in today's Can't Cook, Won't Cook on BBC One in half an hour.
What's going on between you and Niamh?
We're not getting on.
How bad is it?
He doesn't know how bad it is. That's how bad it is.
If she's fed up with me, then she's fed up with me.
You're on very dangerous ground here.
Now here you go again. You say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down?
Ballycay, Sunday at 8 on BBC One.
The main news stories this Friday morning now on BBC One from Fiona Bruce.
Good morning. Rover's owners, BMW, say a deal has been agreed to keep the company's car factory at Longbridge in Birmingham open. Unions are said to have accepted a package of redundancies, possibly as many as 2,000, together with new working practices.
After months of uncertainty and finally a marathon meeting with top BMW management, a deal has now been struck to save the huge Longbridge Rover car factory. The deal, which will secure the future of thousands of jobs, is aimed at cutting production costs to make the plant more competitive. It will mean around 2,500 redundancies and the introduction of much more flexible working practices and wages. But in return, BMW, which owns Rover, is expected to invest heavily in the Birmingham plant, which employs around 14,000 workers to build the new Mini. A joint statement by management and the union says the deal is subject to details being finalised by the BMW board and the ballot of all 39,000 Rover workers. The deal will also be welcome news to the thousands of people whose jobs rely on the Rover plant.
Shares in Barclays Bank have fallen heavily following the resignation of its chief executive, Martin Taylor. He's leaving the bank immediately following an announcement that its annual pre-tax profits would be less than expected. Barclays said it had not asked him to resign. Chile's foreign minister arrives in Britain today to press for the release of General Pinochet. In Chile, some 50 people were arrested during protests outside the British ambassador's residence.
Chile's foreign minister, José Miguel Insulza, once an exile from General Pinochet, is now arguing for his release. In flying to London, he ignored a call by some right-wingers for a boycott of British companies. In a letter sent to the Times in London, a leading Anglo-Chilean called for the general's release.
It's an unnecessary moment, and we certainly would like to see the situation resolved as quickly as possible, and really the only way to resolve it, looked at from this perspective here in Chile, is the return of General Pinochet to Chile.
The pro-Pinochet demonstrations have continued near the British ambassador's residence. The mainly young demonstrators were probably outnumbered by police. One of those picked up was the general's grandson, but this Pinochet argued his way out and was not arrested.
The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has cut short his visit to Britain after the latest in a series of attacks on Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon. 2 soldiers were killed last night, bringing to 7 the number who died in the past 11 days. The guerrilla group Hezbollah said it was behind the attack. And that's it. There's more news at 5 to 12.
Good morning, now the Midlands news. BMW has confirmed that it has reached agreement with unions at Rover on the future of the Longbridge plant in Birmingham, saving 12,000 jobs. Union officials are returning to Britain with an offer which will go to the Joint Negotiating Committee before being put to the workers. If accepted, the deal will mean the loss of up to 3,000 jobs and the introduction of more flexible working conditions. A new mail centre opens today in Wolverhampton, and it'll be opened by the Speaker of the House of Commons, Betty Boothroyd. The £34 million site was needed after a 50% increase in the amount of mail in the area. Royal Mail have discussed an agreement with unions that ensures no redundancies in Stoke-on-Trent will be necessary after services there have been moved to the new site. That's the news. A look at the Midlands weather now. It'll remain cloudy everywhere with a little mostly light rain at times. Temperatures will rise to a reasonable 10 degrees at best with light southwesterly winds. Now let's have a look at the national forecast with John Kettley.
Hello, good morning to you. Well, it's still fairly chilly on the eastern side of England, but there is milder weather on the way. But with those milder conditions, we'll see a pepping up of the rain later on today as this cold front approaches the northwest of Britain. So strengthening winds and some heavy rainfall is going to return. We see some patchy rain this morning. That rain band has actually fragmented quite dramatically over the past couple of hours. And so many places now just seeing some drizzle, although it is very misty around western coasts and hills and likely to remain that way as well through the rest of the day. Here comes that heavier rain and strengthening winds though across western Scotland and northwest Ireland later in the afternoon. That belt of heavier rain and crossing central Britain as we go through the night with clearer weather following. There could be some fog patches, also some blustery showers, and here temperatures dipping away to 4 degrees. But generally speaking tonight it will stay very mild with temperatures between 8 and 10. Bye-bye.
Healthy winter salads, a fish dish to warm you up, and how to make your own advent calendar, all in today's Good Living with Jane Asher next year on BBC One. And if you can smell burning, don't panic, it's coming from the Can't Cook kitchen. Ainsley tries to keep a lid on things in 25 minutes.
Looking back, right, you got to laugh at some of the gear I was wearing.
From humble beginnings.
When I was a kid, I was the kind of lad, my mum didn't want me to play with.
To his big break in television.
The producer put together me and a man I've grown to love, the great JV. I'm not saying he's wooden, but he uses furniture polish for makeup.
He's inspired generations.
Great old institution that's been running for almost 30 years, longer than my marriage is put together.
Jim Davidson so far, tonight 10:20 on BBC One.
This is the show all about me.
Now on BBC One, here's a woman who knows a thing or two about good living.
Hello and welcome to Good Living. It's Friday, it's the end of our first week back of this new series, and we've got a bumper lineup for you in today's show.